Hello and welcome. I am Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching Newsnight on DD India, your prime-time destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to see you again. All right, on the show tonight, after kicking up a social media storm for not rushing to India's rescue in India's fight against the COVID pandemic, the United States finally relents. All top US leaders from Joe Biden down express solidarity with India and pledge medical supplies for India as well, which begs the question, could the US have done it earlier? Why did the US drag its feet on this issue? And has this hurt the India-US ties? We ask our guests for answers. Also on the show, oxygen concentrators and other medical equipment for the US and Singapore reach India. We'll get you more on that. And polling for Phase 7, the penultimate phase of West Bengal election concludes. Plus, cinema's biggest night, the 93rd Academy Awards, sees history being made with Chloe Zhao emerging as the first woman of color and only the second woman ever to win the Best Director Award for Nomadland. All that and much, much more coming up over the next 1 hour. But first, as always, the headlines. The world lends support to India's spirited fight against COVID pandemic. US and Singapore send oxygen concentrators. Several nations express solidarity in fight against COVID. Centre ensures expeditious customs clearance for related imports. Indian Railways ferries oxygen to the national capital via an oxygen express. Oxygen tankers reach Mumbai, Lucknow and other parts of the country. The Indian Air Force brings cryogenic tankers from Dubai. Empty cylinders being taken from Bhopal to Jamnagar for refilling. Prime Minister Modi reviews preparations by the armed forces to assist in COVID management. Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat briefs the PM. All armed forces medical personnel who retired or took premature retirement in the last 2 years will be recalled to work in COVID facilities near their home. India's vaccination drive completes 100 days, nearly 142 million doses administered so far, more than 352,000 cases reported in the last 24 hours. India's Health Ministry urges people to take both doses of vaccine. AIIMS Director Dr. Randeep Guleria says remdesivir is not a magic bullet. It's only given to patients who are hospitalized. Dr. V.K. Paul from NITI Ayog says it is safe for women to get vaccinated during menstruation, urges people to wear masks inside homes also. The 7th phase of West Bengal election concludes amid COVID-19 protocols. More than 75% polling recorded. 31 seats in 5 districts went to the polls. And Nomadland bags 3 awards at the 93rd Oscars for Best Picture, Best Director and Best Actor. Frances McDormand is Best Actor and Chloe Zhao Best Director. Veteran actor Anthony Hopkins wins Best Actor for his performance in The Father. Welcome. First up, the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, called on PM Narendra Modi on Monday. They reviewed the preparations and operations being undertaken by the armed forces to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. The CDS briefed the PM that all medical personnel from the armed forces who have retired in the last 2 years or taken premature retirement are being recalled to work in COVID facilities. Other medical officers who retired earlier have also been requested to make their services available for consultation through medical emergency helplines. All officers on staff appointments at Command HQ, Corps HQ, Division HQ and similar HQ of Navy and Air Force will be employed at hospitals. Nursing personnel are being employed in large numbers to complement the doctors at hospitals. Oxygen cylinders available by the armed forces in various establishments will be released for hospitals. Defense forces are creating medical facilities in large numbers. PM also reviewed the operations being undertaken by the IAF to transport oxygen and other essentials in India and from abroad. Right, let me now dive straight into our cover story. We retain a sharp focus on India's fight against the COVID pandemic. Tonight, we tell you all about what India and the world are doing to break the chain and beat the coronavirus.
The international community has offered support to India even as the Modi government continues all efforts on a war footing to address the COVID-19 situation in the country. 318 oxygen concentrators from the US arrived at Delhi airport on Monday. Medical equipment from Singapore, including 550 BIPAPs and 250 oxygen concentrators, have reached Mumbai. PD clearance is also being granted for equipment related to oxygen supply at the airports so that they can reach the hospitals quickly.
CBIC और दिल्ली कस्टम्स इन लाइफ सेविंग इक्विपमेंट्स को क्लियर करने के लिए त्वरित क्लियरेंस करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है और इसी कदम में हमने भी इसका क्लियरेंस लैंड कंसाइनमेंट लैंड होने के 5 मिनट के अंदर कर दिया है.
Central Board for Indirect Taxes and Customs has set up dedicated help desks to handle queries related to COVID-related imports to ensure expeditious customs clearance. An online form has been created seeking details in a structured format in order to redress any grievances at the earliest.
सिंगापुर से अपने महाराष्ट्र के लिए 250 ऑक्सीजन कॉन्सनट्रेटर आए थे. वो क्लियर करने के लिए हम लोगों ने ये शिपमेंट विदिन 2 आवर्स के अंदर निकाल के गवर्नमेंट को, महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट को सपोर्ट किया है.
An NGO in Mumbai ordered 500 oxygen concentrators from a Singapore-based company. The NGO received this order within 24 hours. Mumbai Air Cargo Customs Department facilitated clearance of this consignment in just a couple of hours. This life-saving medical equipment will be handed over to the state government, which will be then distributed to the needy patients.
हमने सब साथ मिलकर 500 ऑक्सीजन कंसंट्रेटर इंपोर्ट किए हैं. टेमस फाउंडेशन सिंगापुर ने यह प्रपोजल दिया. प्रतिनिधि चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट ने इंपोर्ट किया. ऑल कार्गो ने हमको कस्टम में से क्लियर करने के लिए और क्लियर की हैसियत से हमको सुविधा दी कि एयरलिफ्ट किया सिंगापुर से.
Exemption of basic customs duty on import of COVID-19 vaccines and the basic customs duty and health cess on import of medical grade oxygen and other equipment related to providing oxygen to patients was announced by the government a few days back. Be it ensuring medical oxygen supplies to all the states or ensuring the availability of medicines and other equipment, organized efforts are being made at all levels. Indian Railways is continuously running Oxygen Express services. One Oxygen Express train carrying 4 tankers is expected to reach Delhi from Raigad on Monday. 3 oxygen tankers were transported from Rajkot via Oxygen Express to Kalamboli in Navi Mumbai on Monday. These tankers transported about 44 tons of liquid medical oxygen, covering 860 kilometers to reach their destination. Another Oxygen Express is currently on the run from Bokaro to Lucknow, carrying 90 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen in 5 tankers. It is expected to reach Lucknow by Tuesday early morning. The Indian Air Force is also continuously working to supply oxygen. It airlifted cryogenic tankers from Dubai. It also transported empty oxygen cylinders from Bhopal to Jamnagar for refilling. Steel plants in public and private sector supplied 3,131.84 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen to various states on Sunday, as compared to 2,894 metric tons dispatched on Saturday. The production on 25th April was 3,468.6 metric tons. To facilitate the faster movement of LMO, nitrogen and argon tankers are being converted to carry oxygen after necessary permission was granted by the concerned authorities. Currently, there are 765 nitrogen tankers with a capacity of 8,345 metric tons and 434 argon tankers with a capacity of 7,642 metric tons. 1,172 tankers are available for liquid medical oxygen with the capacity of 15,900 metric tons. Meanwhile, Delhi High Court directed hospitals in the national capital to scrupulously follow a Delhi government circular on not insisting on COVID-positive test reports before admitting patients showing symptoms. This order came while disposing of a PIL on the same matter. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, India's vaccination drive against COVID completes 100 days. That and the latest coronavirus situation in the country in the next report, which also tells you about what the union and state governments are doing to tackle the pandemic. Take a look.
COVID-19 vaccination drive in India has completed 100 days on Sunday. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has crossed 14.19 crore. Cumulatively, 14 crore 19 lakh 11,223 vaccine doses have been administered. 8 states account for 58.78% of the cumulative doses given so far. Nearly 10 lakh vaccination doses were administered in the last 24 hours. India's cumulative recoveries stand at 1 crore 43 lakh 4,382. National recovery rate is 82.62%. 2 lakh 19,272 recoveries registered in the last 24 hours. 10 states account for 78.98% of new recoveries. 3 lakh 52,991 new cases registered in the last 24 hours. 10 states, including Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Rajasthan report 74.5% of the new cases. Maharashtra has reported the highest daily new cases at 66,191. It is followed by Uttar Pradesh with 35,311 cases, while Karnataka reported 34,804 new cases. National mortality rate has been falling and currently stands at 1.13%. 2,812 deaths have been reported in the last 24 hours.
हमारे देश में केसेस बढ़ रहे हैं, तो इसके लिए हमें जरूरी है कि हम अपना फोकस्ड अटेंशन कोविड मैनेजमेंट पर जिस तरह से कि हम पिछले 1 साल 3 महीने से लगाते आए हैं, उसी को हमें कंटिन्यू रखना है, रिन्यूड विगर के साथ काम करना है, जिसमें कि हमारे मेन 5 अप्रोचेज रही हैं, जो कि अगर हम देखें टेस्ट, ट्रैक, ट्रीट, वैक्सीनेशन एंड कोविड अप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर। आज जरूरत है कि हम इस अपनी अप्रोच को फील्ड में लागू करते समय 3 मुख्य गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल्स पर अपना फोकस बनाए रखें, जिसमें हम लोग हाईलाइट करना चाहेंगे मुख्यतः कंटेनमेंट, सेकंड क्लिनिकल मैनेजमेंट, थर्ड कम्युनिटी एंगेजमेंट।
The Ministry of Health has stressed on further accelerating the COVID vaccination campaign. NITI Ayog member Dr. V.K. Paul has said that it is safe for women to get vaccinated during menstruation.
वैक्सीन इस महामारी के इस तरह से चलते हुए भी हमें और तेज गति से आगे लेके जाना। We cannot let the pace of vaccination decline or slacken in the face of the emerging situation. No way. In fact, it should be escalated. And with that intent, as you know, the Government of India has brought a revised policy, and we do believe and hope and are confident that that will bring in more acceleration in our vaccination program. एक भ्रांति अभी किसी ने भेजा हम कईयों को कि क्या मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल के बीच मेंसेस जब हो रहे हों गर्ल्स में, विमेन में, तो क्या वैक्सीन लग सकता है? Can vaccine be given during menstruation, during the period? The answer is yes. The vaccination can be given, should be given, and this is no reason to postpone vaccination.
Further, Dr. Paul also said that the time has come for the citizens to wear face masks inside their homes as well. The government has stressed on 2 doses of the vaccine against coronavirus disease to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. First COVID-19 vaccine dose prepares the human immune system to build antibodies, and with the second dose, called the booster dose, the immune system receives the boost to produce a large number of antibodies. According to one study, even single dose gives enough immunity to fight COVID-19, and if infected, hospitalization will not be needed.
पैनिक के कारण लोग घर पे दवाइयाँ स्टोर करने लग जाते हैं, होर्डिंग शुरू हो जाती है और अननेसेसरी शॉर्टेज ऑफ एसेंशियल ड्रग्स जो है वो मार्केट में क्रिएट हो रही है। तीसरा, उसी के कारण कई दफ़ा ड्रग्स का मिसयूज़ भी हो जाता है, क्योंकि कई लोग ये सोचते हैं कि अगर कोविड है तो मैं पहले दिन ही सारी दवाई शुरू कर लेता हूं तो शायद आगे तकलीफ ना हो, लेकिन उनसे साइड इफ़ेक्ट ज़्यादा होते हैं और उससे कोई फ़ायदा नहीं होता है। उसी के साथ साथ कई लोग ये सोचते हैं कि अगर मैं ऑक्सीजन घर पे रख लूं और ऑक्सीजन लगाना शुरू कर लूं पहले ही, तो शायद मेरे को आगे ऑक्सीजन की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। ये सब गलत धारणाएं हैं और यही मैं क्लैरिफाई करना चाहूँगा।
Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a meeting with Team 11 via video conferencing to take stock of the situation of corona infection in the state. Adityanath said that no government or private hospital can refuse to admit a COVID-positive patient if available. He said the government will pay the treatment bills of COVID-infected patients under the Ayushman Bharat scheme. Karnataka has announced a 2-week lockdown from Tuesday, a day after reporting the biggest rise of over 34,000 new cases in 24 hours. Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa also announced free immunization in the government hospitals for people above the age of 18 years.
Virus is spreading at very fast pace in the state. It is worse than Delhi and Maharashtra. All above 18 will be vaccinated in the state free of cost. Next 14 days, there will be COVID curfew.
In view of the increasing cases of coronavirus in Jammu and Kashmir, the government has closed all public parks till further orders. In an important decision, the time of night curfew will be from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. in all districts of Jammu and Kashmir. In the meantime, bringing major relief to residents of the national capital, Sardar Patel COVID Care Centre in Delhi has become functional and has started admitting COVID-infected patients. SOP and all prescribed COVID protocols are being followed in admitting COVID-19 patients. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, a group of officials led by NITI Ayog CEO Amitabh Kant on Monday reached out to more than 100,000 civil society organizations to address the challenges arising out of the COVID pandemic. The group discussed about a coordinated strategy to navigate through the impact of recent surge in COVID cases. The chairperson of the empowered group sought the support of civil society organizations and asked them to complement the efforts of the government in the following activities. Take a look. First, creating awareness about and emphasizing the need for people to continue to follow COVID-appropriate behavior. That's number one. Number two, making communities aware of the benefits offered by various government initiatives such as the One Nation, One Card scheme for enabling beneficiaries to access subsidized food grains, extending support for distribution of PPE kits and other personal health and hygiene products for community workers and volunteers, supporting the state governments in filling a gap in the routine delivery of public health services, assisting local administration in identifying hotspots and deputing volunteers to deliver services, partnering with state governments for enlisting volunteers to support COVID response efforts, alleviating social stigma and discrimination against COVID patients, and address vaccine hesitancy, dispel myths and misconception, and encourage people to vaccinate themselves. Now, the government has set up 6 empowered groups to address various issues pertaining to management of COVID-19. The empowered group 3, which is chaired by CEO of NITI Ayog, is entrusted with the responsibility of coordinating with the private sector, NGOs and foreign organizations for COVID-19 response-related activities. Slammed for its silence, trashed for its lack of gratitude, and criticized for not acting sooner. Social media was abuzz these past few days after the US, of all countries, declined to come to India's rescue and share essential raw materials for vaccines. This in spite of the fact that India went out of its way to send HCQ tablets to the US last year when the medicine was needed there. But all that changed over the last 24 hours. The next report tells you more. After dilly-dallying for days on end, the United States jolted into action on Sunday. All top US leaders from President Joe Biden down finally broke their silence on the pandemic raging on in India. Biden pledged to help India with essential medical supplies and equipment. He said on Twitter, just as India sent assistance to the United States as the hospitals were strained early in the pandemic, we are determined to help India in its time of need. Biden's tweet came after his National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke to India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Sullivan assured New Delhi of supplying raw materials used in the manufacture of vaccines in India, test kits, PPEs and ventilators. Sullivan tweeted, "Spoke today with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval about the spike in COVID cases in India, and we agree to stay in close touch in the coming days. The United States stands in solidarity with the people of India, and we are deploying more supplies and resources." US Vice President Kamala Harris put out a tweet too. The first US Vice President of Indian origin said, "The US is working closely with the Indian government to rapidly deploy additional support and supplies during an alarming COVID-19 outbreak. As we provide assistance, we pray for the people of India, including its courageous healthcare workers." Like Biden, Harris too was slammed by social media users in India and around the world for her silence. This when India was at the forefront of sharing HCQ with the US last year. US Defense Minister Lloyd Austin also sought to make amends for Washington's perceived lack of gratitude towards India by issuing a statement. He tweeted, "I'm deeply concerned about the COVID-19 outbreak in India, and today I directed the Department of Defense to use every resources at our disposal within our authority to support US interagency efforts to provide India's frontline healthcare workers with the materials they need." The US Foreign Minister Antony Blinken was the first to stand in solidarity with India. Blinken tweeted, "Our hearts go out to the Indian people in the midst of the horrific COVID-19 outbreak. We are working closely with our partners in the Indian government, and we will rapidly deploy additional support to the people of India and India's healthcare heroes." Blinken was joined by US Foreign Secretary Wendy Sherman, who said on Twitter that she has been in close touch with Indian Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla and Indian Ambassador to the US Taranjeet Sandhu. Sherman said, "The American people stand in solidarity with our friends in India during these difficult times. We are rapidly providing therapeutics, ventilators, PPE, raw material for vaccines and more." Bureau Report, DD India. All right, time now for our In Focus segment, in which we are discussing about world rushes to India's help as government takes more steps to tackle virus. Joining me are three very special guests: Ambassador Mohan Kumar, Dr. Narendra Arora and Urvashi Prasad. Ambassador Kumar is the chairperson of Research and Information System for Developing Countries, a policy-funded think tank headquartered in New Delhi. He is a former Indian envoy to France and Bahrain. Dr. Arora is the executive director of the Inclen Trust International. He was a faculty member of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. And a quick word about the Inclen Trust International itself. It is a not-for-profit research organization conducting collaborative, multidisciplinary studies on high-priority global health issues. And Ms. Prasad is a public policy specialist at NITI Ayog, an Indian government think tank. So we have a diplomat, a public health expert, and a public policy specialist, all three on this discussion. I hope it turns out to be valuable for our viewers in India and around the world. Welcome to all three of my guests. If I can start with you, Ambassador Kumar. What did you make of the US dragging its feet on coming to India's help, lending support to India's efforts to beat the virus? Why did it drag its feet, and has it, in your estimation, kind of left a bad taste in the mouth of many people at home?
Thank you very much for having me on your program. I think I'll begin to address the last one first. I don't think it leaves a bad taste in anybody's mouth, frankly. You know, diplomats and policymakers have to go beyond the emotions generated by tweets. I think this is a long-standing partnership that we have with the United States. I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I am now happy that the US has responded. Having said that, I think the reasons for the delay can both be ascribed to bureaucratic delay as well as substantive factors. The bureaucratic delay partly is because they've got a labyrinth process in the United States. Interagency coordination is never easy. You've got a whole lot of departments to be consulted. It is true that the initial remarks, especially of the White House spokesman, if I'm not mistaken, Ned, that was a little insensitive because he gave the impression we have to first take care of the Americans. And even if that is true, you don't say that in the context of a relationship that is so important as that for India. But other than that, this delay is to be expected because you've got a whole lot of other issues on the plate of the United States. The substantive reasons for delay is because they don't have an ambassador in Delhi, and it is possible that they had to consult the multinational companies, Pfizer, etc., as to what they think about the export of raw materials that had to be done. Unlike India, perhaps, and other countries where the government has more room for maneuver, my sense of negotiating with United States on intellectual property rights, and I've dealt with big pharma, is that the pharmaceutical companies actually have a lot of leverage over the government in the United States. And I don't think the United States could have committed to India to export raw materials and other things unless there was a consultation with the pharmaceutical companies. I would attribute the substantive reasons for the delay to this particular aspect. In addition, it is clear that the presidency of Joe Biden is going to depend on how well he performs vis-a-vis the pandemic. Frankly, his whole presidency is going to be determined by this. And I think he's done a fantastic job in terms of vaccinations and so on. So it's quite natural that they take a little bit of time to consult. So I realize, Ramesh, that I may be in a minority because a whole lot of people in India, I concede, are quite, shall we say, unhappy with the way the United States has dragged its feet a little. My sense is that there are more important things at stake here. Absolutely. And that the fact that the United States has finally delivered is what is important to me. And I would therefore look to strengthening the partnership on that basis. Now, everybody from the president down has expressed solidarity. And if the raw materials come for the manufacture of the Covishield, which I think is arguably much more important than other things, because ultimately we have to produce the vaccines, we have to vaccinate the people, frankly. So I would say that, and especially the United States funding a company in India for making 1 billion vaccines by 2022, the BioE company. So there are short-term measures, there are medium-term measures, there are long-term measures which have been announced by the United States. I would hold them to it and therefore take the partnership forward.
Indeed, point well taken, Ambassador Kumar. Dr. Arora, coming to you now. Ambassador Kumar spoke about India and the US and in relation to vaccines. Now, let me come to other issues at hand, namely oxygen demand and supply at home. Now, we've seen the government take a number of steps in the last couple of days to shore up the supplies of oxygen across the country. And also, we've seen the last 24-odd hours, countries from the US and Singapore extending their help to boost oxygen supplies at home as well. In your estimation, the public health expert, what do you make of the situation at home as we speak in relation to this specific issue?
I could not hear Mr. Kumar very well, but I would like to add two very additional important points India's health diplomacy role at a global level.
Right.
I am associated with COVAX facility and I chair that committee. And India is a beacon, and India, when it had spare vaccines, it provided Covishield vaccine to over 80 countries. In addition, throughout last 1 year, it is not only USA, but we have provided medical services, medical equipment, kits, PPE kits, and ventilators to the other low and middle income countries.
Right.
So India has played a very pivotal role and played a role as a very important global partner and in the true spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. And at this time, the delay and delaying on the part of many high-income countries, particularly USA, is very unwelcoming, I would say. Now, coming to the question of the issue of oxygen supply.
Right.
Now, oxygen supply, we know India is the largest producer of liquefied oxygen. And during last 1 week or 10 days, our production capacity has increased by about 25%.
Okay.
And the oxygen consumption has increased by almost 120% or so. We were using around 4,000. We are now using around 8,000 tons. And I must say the system has really responded very well. The industry, the railways, the carriers, the cryogenic carriers is in fact, now it appears they have become the limiting step because we don't have adequate numbers of these trailers which carry the oxygen. And on the other hand, I would also say, I think it is the responsibility of medical professionals and hospitals not to unnecessarily use, because patients will keep on demanding everything.
Very true.
But I think the rational use of every intervention is very, very important. In fact, it has been seen that if we unnecessarily use oxygen, extra oxygen in my inhaled air actually can cause respiratory damage. Therefore, when it is not required, there is no need. So I feel the system is going to get organized. I am sure we could have taken a proactive steps maybe 2 weeks ago, but I think except Delhi and surrounding area and some other parts of the northern India, rest of the country is doing reasonably well. And over next 48 or 72 hours, I think we should be able to overcome the difficulties our hospitals and medical professionals have.
Indeed. Ms. Prasad, coming to you now, taking off from the point where Dr. Arora left, today marks the first 100 days of India's vaccination program or campaign. When you look back at the last 100 days, what are your thoughts as we go forward and look at the next phase of vaccination, number one? And number two, as a public policy specialist, how do you look at some of the myths and misinformation associated with the vaccination campaign, including the so-called infodemic, which needs to be combated on a war footing as well, isn't it?
Right. So I think on the vaccination, if we look at both aspects, the demand and the supply, I think when we initially started off on the demand side, there was a certain amount of hesitancy. There were certain question marks that people had because, of course, this is a new disease. This is a completely new set of vaccines. So to some extent, that was also expected. But that is something we did have to deal with in the initial few weeks of it. But gradually, we've seen that at least as far as the demand is concerned, there has been a ramping up. And now, of course, that we are in the midst of this surge, and now with the government also opening up vaccination to all adults, the expectation on demand certainly is that the hesitancy should be reduced. It would not go away completely, obviously. As you mentioned, there's still a lot of misinformation, which there is a tendency for it to spread, including through social media, through WhatsApp. Now, of course, the government is putting out through its channels, through its press conferences, etc., the verified information, but there's also a lot of onus on civil society, on citizens at this time, to make sure that we're also sharing the verified and accurate information, and making sure that the right information is reaching people, because otherwise it can unnecessarily add to the hesitancy, which is definitely not something that we want to see right now. People should not get into which vaccine to take, right. All those questions, whatever is available, people should go out there and get Absolutely. It. So I think that is on the demand side. On the supply side, I think, we've had obviously the 2 vaccines which are already there, and their manufacturing is being ramped up. Mm-hmm. The government has already extended advance credit to our current manufacturers. So that is happening, but we should also see the 3rd vaccine, the Russian vaccine, right. also coming into the country in the next month. And there are still additional vaccines which would be given emergency authorization here, which have already been approved by established regulators in Europe, Japan, etc. So I think we have a good pipeline of vaccines. Further down, we're still also focusing on our research and development efforts. We also have some nasal vaccine candidates which are going through stages of trials. So I think on both demand and supply, there's a lot of efforts going on, but it will need to be a collective effort. Of course, the government has a big role to play, but I think and therefore the Empowered Group is also called upon the civil society and the citizens, especially have a big role to play in addressing the hesitancy.
Absolutely, without doubt. Ambassador Kumar, now we spoke about India and the US. Let's expand the ambit of our discussion to include other countries, namely the UK, the European Union, Singapore, Germany, and so on and so forth. Multilateralism remains as key to this, to combating a pandemic such as COVID-19 as ever. So in that context, how do you look at the cooperation extended by other countries in the Europe and beyond?
So rather than talk of multilateralism, I would say that this is a test case for resilient supply chains.
Indeed.
If countries which share a similar worldview, and if countries have a convergence when it comes to pandemic and so on. So if you see the cooperation that's going on, we are talking about United States, UK, you're talking about obviously the EU as a whole, so France, Germany, then you're also talking about other countries like Japan, with whom I think the Prime Minister of India has just had a conversation with the Japanese PM today. So I would say that this is a test case for resilient supply chains, which can then determine how supply chains will operate in the future. So because I don't see China, Pakistan in the equation yet. It may happen, but we haven't seen it yet in the mix. Russia has offered, Russia as a time-tested friend has offered oxygen tanks and oxygen concentrators. So what you are seeing is a selective kind of cooperation that's going on. I would say that India's strategic partners are the ones who are responding to the call, frankly. And it seems to me that this kind of cooperation is important because I think it's fair to say that no one is safe until everyone is safe, frankly. Because at the end of the day, you are not going to be able to prevent a global travel for an indefinite period. At some point of time, people will have to travel, people will have to get on with economic activity. There's also a reason why India is important, because other than China, which remains an outlier, the economic growth, the rebounding of the economic growth, the global economic recovery also depends on economies like India. I'm saying also because I'm not saying that we are big and that we are the only ones who are going to determine it, but it's a fact that the Indian economy and the extent to which it can rebound quickly will make a difference to global economic recovery. Similarly, Indian students who go to study in the United States, who go to study in the Europe, that will make a difference. Tourism will make a difference. So I think it is in the collective interest of the West and of our strategic partners to ensure that India gets out of this as quickly as possible. I mean, this has taken everybody by surprise, frankly. The extent, the intensity of the second wave or the third wave, whichever wave you want to call it, it is the intensity which has taken people by surprise, because I think we were lulled into a sense of complacency after the first one, which was actually, in terms of impact, it wasn't much. So I would say that the combination of reasons to explain your multilateralism and my resilient supply chains, one is strategic partnership and convergence, second, solidarity, but third, self-interest as well.
Indeed.
I really think it is in the interest of these countries that India gets up on its feet as quickly as possible, because I don't think we can afford an economic recovery on a global scale faltering because of big countries like India. So there is, I think, an enlightened self-interest to see that India recovers as quickly as possible. And there is also a further reason. I think India also has committed to supplying vaccines to other markets, especially to low-income countries in Africa and to the COVAX facility of the United Nations. So if India is not able to manufacture the vaccines for whatever a reason in terms of lack of raw materials, or India needs more vaccines, etc., that effort, the global effort to vaccinate Africa and low-income countries will also suffer heavily if India is affected. So I think there is a variety of reasons why there is an interest on the part of United States, EU, UK, and other countries to help India and to ensure that this problem doesn't get any worse.
Indeed. I'm running out of time, so a quick question to both my guests, Dr. Arora and Ms. Prasad. One, what do you make, how crucial is this double mutant, the B1617 variant that we keep hearing about, and how difficult will it be to combat this variant or the virus, number one? And number two, the lessons learned from the previous wave, the first wave, and how that can keep us in good stead when we look at possible third wave, which some people say is imminent. Your thoughts, Dr. Arora, and Ms. Prasad afterwards. Very quickly, please.
So I will quickly take up this whole issue of variants or mutants.
Right.
And we must understand, why are we doing surveillance? We are doing it for four purposes. One is whether a variant makes the disease more severe, or it makes the disease more infectious. That means transmission is faster. The second is whether vaccines currently we have in the country, are these effective against these variants. That's the second purpose. Third is whether anybody who has received both the vaccines, it is there can be a breakthrough infection, that despite immunization, can you get an infection. Fourth, that during diagnosis, does variants or variants cause any difficulty in diagnosis? RT-PCR, does it still remain valid, or it becomes? So I will go one by one. That
very quickly, please, Dr. Arora, if you don't mind.
All the current variants are highly infectious. They do not increase the severity. So they spread. So a lot of this current outbreak is fueled partly by, at least by the variants. The second is vaccine, currently vaccine effectiveness is not affected. Third is whether it causes breakthrough infection or not, it is still a study, it's an issue of a study, and it is being investigated. And fourth point is that there is no interference with RT-PCR. And the learnings from the last epidemic is, I think all those districts which have a positivity rate of more than 15%, I think a lockdown for 4 to 6 weeks is necessary to break the chain of transmission. I will stop at that.
All right, great. Ms. Prasad, I'll give you the last word. Very quickly, your thoughts on the lessons learned from the first wave and how that might help us in combating future waves, which some people say is imminent.
Right. So I think one, which is very important and which is something which is relevant for each one of us, that whether there's mutants, variants, any of this, our COVID appropriate behaviors still remain our best protection against whatever is happening. So let us never let our guard down. Let us remember that pandemics do often and always come in waves. And so at least that is something that we must now do. We should not allow any sort of laxity to creep into our behaviors. And as far as the health system is concerned, I think there's always already now a focus on the way ahead. Whether it's preparing ahead for boosting oxygen generation further through additional plants which would be set up in various district headquarters and the various health facilities through the PM CARES Fund, or whether it is boosting vaccination. I think all those preparations from the health system perspective are being done. But as citizens, I think the best we can do is continue to adhere to our COVID appropriate behaviors regardless of our vaccination status, because that is still the best bet we have, whether there's a variant or there's anything else happening with respect to the virus in the country.
All right, on that note, Ms. Prasad, Dr. Arora and Ambassador Kumar, thank you all for joining us on News Night tonight. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Right, shifting focus now. Polling concluded peacefully in 34 seats of West Bengal in the 7th phase of election. Voters set an example of COVID-appropriate behavior following due protocols of sanitization and social distancing. A voter turnout of 75.06% was reported by 5 p.m. The Election Commission has instructed district authorities to take action under the Disaster Management Act in case of any violation and to cancel permission for further campaigning even if it was granted earlier. In other news, PM Modi on Monday spoke to his Japanese counterpart Suga Yoshihide. They reviewed the bilateral ties in areas ranging from high technology and skill development to fighting the COVID pandemic together. PM Modi wrote on Twitter, and I quote, "Spoke to PM Suga of Japan on phone. We reviewed the progress in various ongoing bilateral initiatives. We also discussed our cooperation in diverse areas, including high technology, skill development, and in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic together," unquote. The two leaders highlighted the importance of close India-Japan cooperation to overcome the current challenges, such as by working together to creating resilient, diversified and trustworthy supply chains, ensuring reliable supply of critical materials and technologies, developing new partnerships in manufacturing and skill development, the need for early operationalization of specified skilled workers agreement, and the need for steady progress in execution of the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail corridor project. And now take a look at what else is making news around India in our national roundup segment.
The Madras High Court has slammed the Election Commission for allowing political rallies in the country. The court has said that the country is fighting a deadly second wave of COVID-19, amid which the political rallies are being organized. Chief Justice Sanjeev Banerjee also strongly criticized the Election Commission for failing to follow the guidelines of COVID-19 during the rallies. The High Court has directed the Election Commission to formulate a plan with the Health Secretary of the state government to implement the guidelines of COVID-19 on the day of counting and presented before the court by April 30th. Actor-activist Deep Sidhu, accused of the Red Fort violence, has been granted bail in another case by the Tees Hazari Court in Delhi. Sidhu was arrested in connection with the Red Fort violence on Republic Day. The court has said that Deep Sidhu has already been interrogated for 14 days in police custody and has been in the custody for about 70 days. The Delhi police has arrested 5 people in case of black marketing of remdesivir injections. The first set of arrests was made in South Delhi, where 3 people were nabbed, while 2 more were taken into custody in West Delhi. Police recovered 7 remdesivir injections from 3 people. Amid daily increasing cases of COVID-19, the police administration of Kanpur has prepared a 16-bed COVID hospital within 24 hours. The hospital has all facilities for COVID-19 patients. Police personnel as well as common public can be admitted in this hospital. In Gujarat, the doctor couple is becoming an example for people in distress. The doctors are treating COVID-19 patients for free in 10 isolation wards. Dr. Shailesh Bhayani and his wife are treating 70 to 80 patients daily. Amid growing cases of COVID-19 infections across India, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Google CEO Sundar Pichai have extended helping hand. Nadella said it will continue to use its voice, resources and technology to aid relief efforts and support the purchase of critical oxygen concentration devices, whereas Sundar Pichai extended support with a grant of Rs 135 crore to various organizations that are helping in the times of crisis. Google has thanked the Corona warriors in a special way. It has dedicated its doodle to the warriors who are fighting against the pandemic. The doodle is dedicated to all important people who are constantly fighting against the pandemic. The doodle says, "Thank you to public health workers and researchers amid COVID-19 crisis."
In entertainment news, Chinese filmmaker Chloe Zhao made history at the 93rd Academy Awards by becoming the first woman of color to win the Oscar for Best Director. Nomadland, directed by her, also won the Best Picture award. She's only the second woman in Oscar history to win the award after the Hurt Locker director Catherine Bigelow.
It was a series of many firsts when the much-anticipated winners of the 2021 Oscar Awards were announced on Monday in Los Angeles. Chloe Zhao scripted history at the 93rd edition of the Academy Awards. Chinese-born Zhao became the first woman of Asian origin and the first woman of color to win an Oscar for Best Direction for her drama Nomadland. Zhao has also become only the second woman to win Best Director award in the 93-year history of the Academy Awards after Catherine Bigelow took the prize in 2010 for war thriller The Hurt Locker. Zhao's dream project, Nomadland, won the top honor of the Best Picture at the Oscars. The film has already received the top honors at Venice and Toronto film festivals as well, as has won the Best Picture at the BAFTAs and the Golden Globes. A recession-era tale about a community of van dwellers in the American West, Nomadland added another feather to its cap when its lead, Frances McDormand, won the Oscar for Best Actress for the movie. It is McDormand's third Oscar after bagging the award first in 1997 for Fargo and in 2018 for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing and Missouri. In the international category, Danish film Another Round won the Best International Feature Film. It became the 4th Danish film to take home an Oscar. The Best Actor award was bagged by British actor Anthony Hopkins for his heart-wrenching performance as a man with dementia in The Father. His Best Lead Actor win made him the oldest actor to get an Academy Award, an honour previously held by late actor Christopher Plummer. The Father, a film about dementia, also won Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars. The duo of Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman play father and daughter in this film, which is about family, love and loss, that was written and directed by Florian Zeller. Second time in a row, a South Korean drama took home with them an Academy Award. This time, South Korea's Yoon Yoo-jung bagged the award for Best Supporting Actress for Minari. The Best Supporting Actor was won by Daniel Kaluuya for Judas and the Black Messiah. The 93rd Academy Awards also saw director Emerald Fennell claiming the Oscar for Best Screenplay for her film Promising Young Woman. Fennell is known for her screenplay of Netflix original hit series The Crown. In the cinematography category, period drama, Mank stood out of its lot when it won the Oscar. The film was also awarded the Production Design Academy Award. The fans of the sci-fi were delighted when Christopher Nolan's big-budget thriller Tenet picked up the Visual Effects Oscar Award. With most of the team appearing via video link from London, visual effects artist Scott Fisher had the honor of collecting the Oscar statuette in person at the award ceremony in Los Angeles. In the animation category, Soul, a Pixar animation about a black music teacher, picked up the Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film at the Academy Awards. In the documentary category, My Octopus Teacher has won the Oscar Award for Best Documentary. The documentary showcases a unique bond between a man and an octopus. The 93rd Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences also saw Sound of Metal picking up the Academy Award for Best Sound. The Sound Award winner was announced by the star of Sound of Metal, Riz Ahmed. Jazz period drama Ma Rainey's Black Bottom took the award for Best Makeup and Hairstyling at the Academy Awards in Los Angeles. Stylists Mia Neal and Jamaica Wilson are the first black women duo to win in this category. Bureau Report, DD India.
In other news, Moscow prosecutors on Monday ordered regional campaign groups supporting the jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny to stop their activities pending a request to outlaw them. A court ruling called the groups as extremists. This would give authorities the legal power to hand down jail terms to these activists and freeze the group's bank accounts. The jail critics team said the move would essentially shut down Navalny's anti-corruption foundation. Navalny said the allegations were being used as a pretext for political repression. Germany has criticized the charges against Navalny's associates. A German government spokesperson said using anti-terror laws against political opponents is in no way in line with rule of law. The spokesperson said Navalny must be freed immediately. The European Commission on Monday launched legal action against AstraZeneca for not respecting its contract for the supply of COVID-19 vaccines and for not having a reliable plan to ensure timely deliveries. Under the contract, the company had committed to making its best reasonable efforts to deliver 180 million vaccine doses to the EU between December and June. But the company said in a statement on 12th March that it would aim to deliver only 1/3 of that. This led the EU Commission to start legal proceedings against AstraZeneca to resolve their dispute. As India battles the worst surge in COVID cases, nations across the world have offered help. And Alex Ellis, UK High Commissioner to India, posted a message on his social media account. It's a simple message made simpler for many Indians because of the language he chose to say those words, that is Hindi. Take a look.
इस वक्त में यूके भारत के साथ हैं। प्रधानमंत्री बोरिस जॉनसन ने आज ऑक्सीजन कंसंट्रेटर्स और वेंटिलेटर्स भारत को भेजने का फैसला किया है। कोरोना को हराने के इस जंग में यूके भारत के साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलकर आगे बढ़ रहा है।
That's a wrap. But news continues here on DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. But before I take leave of you, I'd be remiss in my duties if I do not remind you, the viewer, to do the following. Wear a mask, wash your hands and always maintain physical distancing. This is in your interest and that of your family, friends and loved ones. Join DD India's Mask Up campaign to beat COVID-19. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
कुआं नहीं